Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Dawn Spector here. Today, finally, with my review for the Shuoer EJ07M. This is a tribrid bread boy clocking in, I think, originally at like $600-ish or something like that. And yeah, it's no longer the most recent one. So most of the time you will be able to find this for like $550, $520/Euro-ish, which is still a lot in the IEM landscape today, especially with the current wave of planars. And yeah, this is not really flying under the radar, to say so, but comparatively to the Oracle or the variations, this definitely got quite a bit less praise. And in today's review, I will be finding out if this is for a reason or if this actually is, in fact, a hidden gem. And yes, as usual, I will be starting off with a quick unboxing and accessories. And let me just show you how nice the unboxing experience would be. Yeah, so this wrap paper here would be around this, and then this is still packed additionally in this cardboard box, which like fits really tight without being too tight, so you can still remove it. And when you open it, and then you get greeted by this nice packaging here. It's big, alright? My hands are relatively large, but still you can see like this is easily bigger than my hand. And yeah, generally this presentation is branded, like they definitely want you to know that this is Shuoer. And yeah, at the back you have a few information, including the measuring they did, or the measuring that this is supposed to have. More about later on when we talk about sound. And then we remove this slider thing here, which is fortunately easy to remove, unlike other IEMs that I had. And then you get greeted with this box here. Pretty standard, like matte black casing with a small logo on top. And yeah, the slogan, I still don't know what it actually means. Impulse the emotion. I have no clue. I can't tell you. I don't know. Then you get some marketing, blah blah. You get this see-through sheet here. You get your manual. Stay there, I said. You get a few like warranty card thingies. And then we are directly at the accessories. And yeah, this is here where the IEM would be. The contrast does not really allow to see it that much. But yeah, IEM would be flopped in here. Take a look at that later on. Here we get an assortment of tips, foam tips, 3 pairs, 2 in M and 1 in S in quotes. I think this is more supposed to be L and this is M. And then we get 2 different pair of tips, and those generally have approximately the same output diameter or the same nozzle diameter. But let me just get this one out to show you. This is definitely quite a bit more squishy than the black one. So in terms of comfort, I would definitely recommend, if you want to use silicone tips, these here. They're definitely more squishy and will be more comfortable than these ones here. And yeah, then we get our carrying case here, and let's take a quick look at that, because I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Like, I have written my review, I gotta be honest, and I'm not like reading from it, but I use it for most things, and I'm still not sure how I feel about this box. It's like the Empire ear stuff, like it's a really solid poke of aluminium or steel, so it has a chunk to it, like really, this is a chunky boy. Let me get it to a microphone and give you like a sound test here. That actually hurts my fingers when I do that. Really, it's chunky and it's heavy. And then at the bottom you have a like rubber ring to prevent scratches on your table, and then more branding. And yeah, if you open it, I have to get it to the microphone so you can hear how nice it sounds. Yeah, right? Great. I don't like the sound of that. And then on the inside, you get a bit of a rubberization here. Rubberization at the bottom, as you can see, but the sides, like very lightly rubberized only. I'm not a great fan of that. Like, I would have preferred to at least have like 2 millimeters of felt or something that actually like makes it a bit better feeling, because now it's just like, you know, like, it will keep your IEM safe, of course, like, probably also from a nuclear blast, I don't know. But it just doesn't feel so good on the inside. And yeah, at least it will prevent scratches because it's rubberized, but ain't that great feeling to me. And yeah, we also get this cleaning brush, which you will probably need. More about that also later on. And again, very tasty, silica gel, really tasty. So yeah, generally I find the packaging, accessories and unboxing experience, let me just close my head again, pretty much worth the price. I would have preferred this to be like a more useful thing because I don't want to throw this in my backpack. It's just too heavy, it's too chunky. It will keep everything safe, of course, but do I want to transport it? Not so sure. And yeah, also the tip selection is decent, but I would have liked to see X elastics, liquid silicone tips, or something else that actually is like better than just random silicone tips. I mean, of course, those look to be well chosen, especially because S here actually is small, but still not a great fan of like the overall packaging for like 600 euros/dollar. Could be a bit better. And of course, when you come to environmental impact, like look at the amount of foam in here. I mean, yeah, it looks nice, but just you could compress it and just still have a very nice optic going on without losing too much of the presentation. So yeah, like, it's good, like price appropriate, but you could still do a bit better in my opinion. Oop. Then let's come to the, wait, what do I start with the cable before I got to design? No, IEM Build, wait. Just throw the box back. Let's come to IEM Build. So I need to first find my bad boy. Oop. Let's come to IEM Build first before we come to the cable. So, let me remove the tip and remove the cable. And then we take a look at our IEM here. And yeah, this is using a stainless steel chassis. Like, it definitely has a good weight to it. Like, ain't like a light, definitely, even compared to other metal IEMs I have. This is on the heavier side of things. And yeah, that of course gives it a nice like weighted feeling to the touch or in your hand. And it also feels like definitely like well made due to that. Because as you can see here, this is like a relatively not solid steel, but solid enough, and it really felt sturdy. Like there's absolutely no flex at any point, and generally, yeah, it feels just in hand well made. And if we look at details, we have a 2-pin here, but it's ever so slightly recessed, like I think like 0.5 millimeter or so. And yeah, there's unfortunately no pressure hole on the inside, which we talk about later on. But we do get a nicely detailed pressure hole here, as you can see, which is relatively big. And yeah, you also have like a metal mesh in the inside to protect the insides. Definitely a good idea, because this hole is, when we get closer, like is pretty big. You can see like it's like maybe like 1.5 millimeter in diameter or so. So a big hole that definitely needs additional protection. And then as on that slight like detail here, we get the R marking, which, and I gotta be honest, I noticed that when I wrote my review, so there's no colored R or L marking here, right? It's just steel. Well, no, this actually is round L marking. Like the bigger colors here, as you can see clearly, this one is more blue, this one is more red. I'm not sure if that is intended, but I would guess it's intended. So that's a nice thing. And yeah, following the niceness, see the gap around the edge here, really small, really even. That definitely is price appropriate, and if you feel over it with your finger, also the tolerances in terms of the like, outer diameter, yeah, really nicely. So it is only noticeable that there's a faceplate on this side. All other sides really smooth, and I don't feel anything. Only here in the middle, I definitely notice that there's a bit of a gap here where even my fingernail is like noticing something. And then yeah, for styling, this is pretty boring looking IEM, and on top you have this like, I don't know, like is this printed on? Is this, I have no clue. Like it's colored here, and it's also not that great looking, to be honest. Like I don't really like this particular optic, but it's fine. And yeah, also with the like additional red here, that does indicate right, is also a neat detail. And then last but not least, let's look at the nozzle here. Yeah, you can see it has a lip. It is a 2-piece design overall, so this all is 1 piece and then the faceplate. And we have a thin metal mesh on the front. And I'm not such a great fan of thin metal mesh, just because those are very difficult to clean. Like I prefer more the like solid faceplates, something like here on the Tin P1 Max. I prefer this in terms of cleaning. But yeah, it seems to be well glued on here, and I have absolutely no problem with the way how this IEM is built. Would definitely say this is price appropriate. And after we talked about IEM Build, which definitely I would say is good, like no complaints here, like really I can't find much in just terms of pure build quality. we have to come to the cable. And if you have watched my last 2 minutes on video, I'm sorry, Shuoer, but you got to do better than this. This is really for $600 or 600 something dollar originally. This is just not good. Like, I would even go as far as to say this is bad. It definitively does not get straight. Like, I just want to keep it straight, but you can see, like, I've tried to like really stretch it like this. I tried to make it straight, but it just doesn't want to go straight. It won't. And adding to this is, it also not the thickest cable. Like, for like this price, it really is a relatively thin cable here. Like, I'm not a fan of that. And this, adding with the like weaving here, is definitively better than on the variations, which I also had here just a moment ago. Whoop. This is definitively worse woven, as you can see. Like, this is far more like loose here. Like, not a fan of this one. And it's also relatively tangly. So this is, at least in terms of waving, is a bit better, but generally not good. And adding to inside to injury, let's go to the bottom. The strain release here ain't doing shit. What the hell? This is hard plastic. It can't release strain. So why did you even bother making it? You could have just omitted it and you wouldn't have lost anything. This is bad design. And yeah, it might look nice, but you can see your plug on the inside here. I mean, that's definitely somewhat cool, but it doesn't feel great. Like, even much cheaper cables. So I have still the P1 Max here. Look at this, like, this just looks more expensive. It just looks better, and it also feels better because it's metal, and well, this strain release does release a bit of strain. And in direct comparison, it's also slightly thicker cable. Like, I don't know, like, this thing, got it on sale for like 80, it's still better. And yeah, no, like, you don't notice the 600 euro value in terms of cable here. Like, just is not good. And also the stuff continues at the top here, like, you see the general like bend here. That's how it directly arrived here. And you also cannot get this out of the cable. It just doesn't want to go. It always will have this like weird bending. And adding to this as well, the chin slider here doesn't do shit as well. Like, it does not stay in place even for half a second. You put it on beneath your chin and it slides down immediately. Really not a good, generally not a good cable. And yeah, the ear hooks, at least, they're alright. Like, they are rubberized as you expect. Maybe too thick, but at least the bending radius here is decent. And what I heard people do liking about it, that you have this like 45-degree upwards bend cable, which some like. And I gotta be honest, like, I don't really see much of a difference if you have this cable directly bent 45 degrees here in the plug, or having this rubberized and then bent. I think this might be a bit more durable, but in terms of like variability, I didn't notice anything different between this and, for instance, this cable here. Just, it didn't improve anything. So overall, not a good cable, really not price appropriate. I'd like to see them do much better than that with their next offering. And then let's come to comfort. And here I get my IEM in the picture again. As usual, I will be throwing on measurements of the IEM, in terms of like how big it is, what angle the nozzle is, so you can see for yourself how big it is. But first, let's give you a quick tour. This is more on the chunky side of IEMs. Directly comparing it to the variations here, as you can see, is clearly chunkier than the variations. Like, variations is a bit thicker, of course, give it to that. But generally this is relatively big IEM, and I got to say, like, because it's not really that well contoured, as you can see here, I found something like the H40 here, which, as you can see, clearly still more chunky, still to be more comfortable, because it just has a better contouring going on. It just fits my ear a bit better than the EJ07M. Also adding to the biggish overall size, or to the chunk, is the nozzle, because boy, this is a fake nozzle. Like, really, coming from the variations, again, let me grab variations in the picture here, so you can see what I mean. This was the thickest nozzle I've ever encountered, like 6.4 millimeters all the way to the bottom, no lip, really thick, not really comfortable to wear for long amounts of time during the wet. Yeah, can you see the difference? No, right? Yeah, because this one is also 6.4 at the top, at the lip. Minus the lip, which by the way is relatively thin, like it's barely noticeable here, which, in a side note here in terms of comfort, you cannot put some tips on it. For instance, the final E, I cannot, like it always springs off, because this lip is not like wide enough, it doesn't hold well onto some tips. Also some other random, very soft silicone tips I cannot fit on here. They constantly spring off because the lip is not wide enough. But assuming you find a pair of tips that stays on here, and you don't mind the thick nozzle here as well, I think this IEM can be very comfortable if you get the right tips, because the nozzle is so short. I don't think I measured it, or I didn't notice the measurements in my review here, so I will again throw the measurements on so you can see how long the nozzle is. It definitely is short, so that's an advantage over the variations, because that means most of the insertion in your ear canal will be done here, let me again show you a tip, by the tip itself. And if you got a good tip, like the liquid silicone here from Softears, that really doesn't matter that much, because this will just conform to your ear canal, it will be comfortable, and only here at the end, this will be the uncomfortable part that might not get so great in your ear canal. Also, cut foam tips can probably work for some really well. I, however, preferred, again, liquid silicone tips, just work great for my ear, really nice, and I wore this IEM for most of my listening sessions with this tip. Yeah. Okay, what else can I say about comfort when we talk about... So, there's a big but in this. It is comfortable when you have the right tips, and the but is the EJ07M has driver flex. I'm really sorry to say this, because after I used this tip, the like general chokiness was still okay for my ear and it was really comfortable. But the driver flex, man, like, no, just... I'm really sorry, but like, this was also what killed the Canon for me. Like, Canon was even worse than driver flex, no question there. Like, the Canon, the pressure never really like went away. Like, I had to be so careful when inserting it, and it was still very uncomfortable. This at least is decent after inserting it, but still, I don't want to walk with this around on the outside. I just don't. Like, the driver flex just is too bad. Like, not horrible, but still bad, and I don't like it at all. And this can definitely be like an KO criteria for some people, because if you want to use this on the go, driver flex really ain't great, and you might look into other alternatives, man. So again, summarizing, it has driver flex, nozzle is thick, but if you get the right tips, because it still has contouring, can be very comfortable, especially because the nozzle here is on the shorter side. Okay, then let's come to isolation as next chapter. And I can make this short. Shuoer does not give us theoretical isolation values. This means I cannot tell you how much decibels it is supposed to isolate in theory. So I assume, though, similar to other IEMs, it will probably be like minus 25 to 27 decibels, something in this range. And due to my pure subjective hearing and my usage with other metal-shaped IEMs, I expected this to isolate relatively well, and I was right. This IEM definitely isolates better than, for instance, the H40, even for H40 still bigger. And if you get cut foam tips on this one, I think this is a very good choice, if you don't mind the driver flex, to be worn in all situations. Like, it really isolates well, and I had no problems using it in, I want to say like rush hour traffic. Again, like, I wouldn't want to walk with it, but in rush hour trafficking or in the tram or something, it was totally fine. It did do really good with cut foam tips, and even with silicone tips, like the Softears one here, it had a respectable isolation, and I have had quite a few IEMs that isolated worse than this one. Of course, it's not as good as active noise cancelling. Yeah, true, but this is a passive isolating IEM, and for that, it does pretty well. And next, let's come to drivability. According to spec, the EJ07M has 19 ohms at 107 decibels at 1 watt. I don't know why you would give us like 1 watt here. I just take it like it is. I just tell you the specs. So on paper, it is pretty efficient. In reality, though, it's efficient in reality as well. So I didn't have no problem powering the EJ07M on random USB-C to 3.5 dongle. I did have absolutely no problem using it on my BTR5. no problem also on an even more high-powered SP200 plus SU8. And generally I also didn't notice much of an improvement when you up the power. So this means on the random USB-C dongle that I had, like it was from ISN, I think, that cost like 30 euros or so, or $30. I think you still get like 85% of what this IEM will ever be capable of. And just upping the power a bit to something like the BTR5, which is also, of course, measuring cleaner. Yeah, this, I think, still helps a bit with the punch and definitely also improves staging a bit, but really is not much. It's not like the early planars where you like need to power them with like absurd amounts to get them to decent performance. Just isn't the case here. It just, as I said, gets a bit of punch if you up the power a bit, and I think staging gets improved, but not by a lot. And if you up the power even more after that, so like my desktop setup, like SU8 plus SP200, I don't think I noticed an improvement at all. And I really tried to listen to things, because some people say, for instance, that the Oracle gets more clarity out of it if you power it like really well. This one doesn't. Like I don't hear any difference there. So I can only tell you, having a nice clean power source from, for instance, BTR5, the Hibi FC4 or Shanling UA2 or whatever you want to use there is totally fine. Like you don't need to spend like multiple hundreds of euros to get a nice performance out of this one. And that brings me now to the most important chapter, sound. And again, general sound characteristics. Yeah, let me just throw on the graph here. The EJ07M can absolutely be described as U-shaped IEM. That means it boosts the low end of things and it boosts the high end of things. Hereby, I want to say it is approximately, at least in terms of pinna gain, in the region of neutral, but not exactly neutral. Like it definitely leans there, but doesn't exactly manage that. And after that, it gets a bit like after the pinna gain section, where then it gets a bit lower, like in the like mid to up treble regions. There's definitely a big scoop there, which we talk about later on. So generally, this IEM would be described as U-shaped, because it has a good sub-bass boost as well. And let me start off things with treble, because yeah, that's how I usually start. I start from top to bottom, and top is of course treble. And yeah, let me get this out of the window. My unit definitively measures different from other units that I have seen. I'm not sure if this is like kind of a stealth revision, because my unit definitely has more upper treble energy than most other units most other measurements I've seen. For instance, Critical at an early unit that looks pretty different to what I have. So keep that in mind. Like, I'm not sure if this is a large unit variation or if they just retuned it or something. I'm not sure. Just tell you, my unit has a good amount of upper treble extension. And with good, I mean, it definitively beats my variations in terms of in terms of upper treble extension and upper treble clarity easily. Like, no questions. Variation is beaten without like anything. And yeah, that means that the electrostatic driver implementation here in my unit has been done pretty well, and it gives most classical or more jazz tracks a nice amount of air and a pretty good detail on top for the otherwise, yeah, already pretty good presentation here. However, let me again note, similar to the variations, the additional upper treble energy and the completely different sounding drivers definitively come at the cost of coherence. This means upper treble notes definitely sound different from what I'm used to with dynamic drivers. Even when it's good implemented with a nice amount of air, still sounds different, and it does not sound as organic as it will be with well done single dynamic driver sets, or even for well done multi-BA sets for that matter as well. Just sounds different, and that you need to keep in mind. It's nitpicking, alright, yeah, but still with this price you need to nitpick. But generally, upper treble was really nicely done here, and it worked with most of my library flawless, having really good details. And when we go to the from the upper treble to mid-treble transition, and mid-treble, I want to say this is why I choose the title Beyond Harman, because I think what Harman tries to do is with the scoop between, what did I note here, like 5 and 9K, they try to basically eliminate the resonance peak at 8K and try to like play it safe and be a bit more like chill. And I think the Harman IEM target is not that great, and the EJ07M definitely goes beyond that. It improves on what Harman has done as like bass work, and they make it just better. The scoop here is still deeper, as you can clearly see in my graph, compared to variations, which is almost 1-to-1 Harman for IEM, like almost exactly. And that means you do have a relatively like soft mid-treble presentation here, or like also the transition to upper treble is a bit on the softer side. That on the negative end means that you do lose some detail, definitively is the case, but on the positive side it means you also don't get any fatigue there. And that means even tracks that are not mixed that well. I did notice here Depressive Ghosts or Catharsis from Nightcrawler, or Caged Bird from EJ07M, that definitively are mixed relatively aggressive, and they are not so, like, I don't personally, not that great in this regard. They definitely get smoothed with the EJ07M, and that just makes them just more enjoyable. Yeah, again, as I said, on the flip side, if you come to more orchestral or jazz tracks, you will lose some detail through that scoop. Even for the drivers here are good, you will still lose detail there, and that might not be for everybody. Because, yeah, similar to Harman IEM, like, there are quite a few people loving it, but there are also people opposing it. And I'm in the camp, if I want to have something Harmonish, I think this is the better implementation, just because it has more upper treble, and yeah, when you come about bass, that also is better here. Okay, so yeah, generally this leads to a bit softer E-guitar notes, and cymbals can come off as a bit of lacking in bite. But if you don't mind that and you want a softer mid-treble presentation, definitively nice, and it is a very fun overall listen. And maybe going down further to mid-treble, to like from mid to lower treble and slightly upper mid leaning. Yeah, this is again why I said this is better than Harman. I can throw the graph on, or maybe highlight it, I don't know, I will see later on when I cut this. This is just an improvement over Harman, because the main problem with variations is as well, they are also said in my review, because of the peak in the like lower treble there, is just, it can be a bit forward there. Like some would describe it as harsh, some said a bit shouty, and this just has like 2 decibels less there, and it's just, is plain out better. I got to be honest, it's just better. It makes, for instance, female vocals come off as having a bit less clarity compared to variations, but it also means that female vocals have a way better body. Like, it's the best word I can come up with. Really, they just sounded more full, more rounded, more well-defined. I almost said like more neutral sounding, which of course is like depending on your variation, on your definition. But yeah, I definitely like that much more with the EJ07M when compared to variations here. And yeah, this means when you have vocals, for instance, in the Nier Automata soundtrack, noted here again, Weight of the World, fantastic song if you have not heard it. It worked so wonderfully. Like, I loved the female vocals there. Probably among the best representations that I've heard so far in an IEM. Such a good body, such a good clarity without, like, okay, could be better in terms of clarity there, but when you lose the body there, and this is just, it's so nice, like really, loved it very much. And it brings me to upper mids, and yeah, as I said, they have a good body to them, but not exactly the clarity that, for instance, variation has. And this costs, for instance, in just one example here, for poorly mixed songs. I did note here, again, Caged Bird from EJ07M or Zero from Sidewalks and Skeletons, where we have this like background vocalist almost. It just isn't as clearly defined, and it will get, or can get lost in the mix in comparison to variations there. It's not a lot though, so if you want to EQ it, you can easily do that. It's just like 2 decibels or so. But still, without any EQ, variations there is just a better choice if you want to have the clearest female vocals there is. So yeah, I think overall, very good presentation as well, female, like upper mids, as I said, absolutely no complaints. And that brings me to the mids, or just the mids, I'm not sure what the appropriate naming would there be. And yeah, very good. Like, again, this was really a very nice male vocal representation here. Very good clarity, very good body, very good tonality, and a good separation. Overall, really very nice experience for male vocals, and even live tracks like Metallica's All Within My Hands from S&M 2, marvelous represented. Like, really, it was only beaten in terms of male vocals in comparison to Aged 40. But again, Aged 40 is like this magic trick where it does male vocals so fantastic. Like, nothing has beaten it in terms of pure presence, in my opinion, so far that I've heard. So really, this does come somewhat close And yeah, for so nice general tuning that this one has, like really awesome quality to have. And other examples that worked really well to my ear. Cape of the Hero from Volbeat, very nicely represented. Brave New World from Iron Maiden or Blood Brothers, also very nicely represented. So yeah, male vocals or like mids, very well done here. Good separated, good tonality, everything is good about them. Like I find no flaws there. Low mids, on the other hand, if you like yourself like some really classic rock from like 60s, 70s or something, you will find it a bit lacking because the lower mids are flat, like literally dead flat. Unlike Variations, which has like a slight scooped in the lower mids to upper bass, this one does not have that. It's just flat. And that means it has a better body there and it generally works better for most of the songs. It's not a lot again, like I didn't mind it with the Variations either, but it is audible. And in tracks that are not so greatly mixed, you will notice the more flat mids with this one in comparison to Variations, which is already out of the picture. So yes, lower mids, pretty uneventful, pretty flat, but having still a nice tonality to them. And yeah, avoiding the hollowness that the Variations had. Like, again, it is not like the greatest lower mids probably if you, as I said, like listen to like not so great mixed tracks or like more classic rock stuff. You definitely want a bit more there. But this one is just, for my preference, really well done as well. And I really like the, yeah, just the flatness through all of the mids. Very much liking so. And then, I already told you it's a bit of the, yeah, like scooped out in the treble, and this I think gets aided by the fantastic bass. Man, the EJ07M is, the bass is, I can't tell you like how great this bass is here. It is first a very like tasteful sub-bass boost. It raises from like 200 Hz all the way to 20, slightly reducing its slope in the mid bass, like slightly all, but it keeps rising all the way to 20 Hz. And it has a very well-defined mid bass, which even though it's not as well like visible on the graph, it has a very good punch to it. And man, the texture of this dynamic driver packs, very good. Like really extremely nicely textured, extremely well punchy for the amount it has in the mid bass. And it just sounds so good to my ear. And even if you go from the mid-bass region to sub-bass, yeah, this IEM slams. Like, really. The best IEM that I've heard in terms of pure sub-bass, like tonality or like texture, was the EJ07M. Like, it was not good in the mid-bass, like, really wasn't. But the sub-bass, that had rumble, that had like texture. And the EJ07M here almost manages manages to be as good as the A7 in this regard. Having really nice rumble and good texture in the sub-bass region. Just really my usual benchmark track, Interstellar's Mountains. I again noted 2 minutes 16 or almost 2 minutes 16 with texture is possible, which is among the best that I've heard so far. And really, I can't tell you enough, like bass is, in my opinion, the star of the show here. If you don't want the like extreme mid bass or upper bass that, some stuff will call for, but you just want a nice, clean and good defined bass, it's awesome. Like, probably my favorite thing about the EJ07M, very well defined bass. And I can't really think that you will be able to find a better like bass quality, not quantity, just quality IEM in the sub 1000 region. I can't imagine that exists. Like, really, it's so good. I've not heard anything better today. And yeah, highly recommend it if you like clean and very well defined bass notes. And that brings me to the next part, which is soundstage layering and imaging. And I can make it short. It's better than Variations in this regard. Variations, you are being stomped all over by EJ07M in terms of soundstage. It just has more definition in terms of like forward or like depth in this dimensions, but it also has more depth in these dimensions. So it just is overall better soundstaging IEM. And to my ear, it also layers better. In least you have like 5 layers, most of the time 7 layers easily, and it also manages the really tiny far out layer somewhere here. Also manages that very well, and that means combined with the good imaging, which it also has better than the Variations, this thing is really good for gaming in my experience. Like, I just threw it on played a bit of Hunt, played a bit of Sandstorm, and it just felt right. I could pinpoint where enemies came from directly. I didn't need like in training to get used to how this images, how that sounds. It just worked very well. And even really like somewhat in the front, like when you know, like here's your ears, right? And the imaging here, that is sometimes a bit difficult for yams, even that it managed pretty well. So really imaging, layering, soundstage, well done as well, Shuoer, like absolutely no complaints here. And then we come to separation, dynamics, and coherence, including timbre. And yeah, I think this is maybe the reason why you should still get the variations, because good by variations, as I said, has an extremely well separating like characteristic. Like you can really tell apart individual piano strokes in a song. And that unfortunately is not the case with the EJ07M. It still separates them well though, like don't get me wrong, it still separates well, but it just hasn't the clarity in terms of separation that the variations does manage. And that means in, let me just find in the Brigator soundtrack, Don't Forget to Breathe, they have in piano. And there I here could clearly tell, like, this is where the keystrokes are coming from, really well defined. This lacked a bit in this regard. It isn't bad, but really it is worse than variations and it still costs more. So if you want just well separated things, I think you should still go for variations or maybe something else, because it doesn't struggle really, but it's also not really price appropriate in my opinion. Okay, then dynamics on the other hand, yeah, I would give this to variations, to EJ07M over variations. It is slightly better, probably aided by the just better punch it has. That means like generally it will mostly come off as like more like macro dynamic. Yeah, well again, micro details maybe a bit better as well, or microdynamics, sorry, but I'm not entirely sure if I can really tell you that, because they're pretty similar in terms of dynamics. I would, just as I said, because of the better bass punch, give the dynamic department here, but it's not a lot, like maybe a bit better, but not a lot. And then coherence, including timbre. Yeah, again, it's in tribrid. If you listen closely, you will be able to tell the difference between the dynamic, between the BAs, and between the electrostatics. So that's not a like strong point, but it's better than variations. Especially on low volume, variations really disintegrated into the 3 different parts. And this one stays more controlled in lower volumes, just being audible as like bass, and then there's mids, but there's just barely difference, and then the E starts definitely have a high difference. So yeah, that means yeah, I would say coherence is better. And in terms of timbre, I'm not sure. To my ear, this sounds slightly metallic, like not overall metallic, definitively. For instance, the Elysia is an over ear there, which not comparable, I know, but that sounds more metallic to my ear than this one. But still, the first adjective that came to my mind when I heard it was like slightly metallic. Probably aided again by the pretty well-defined upper treble region, just makes it like a slight metallic shimmer go all over that you will not have for some other the single dynamic sets or other driver implementations here. It's not bad by any means, but again, let me just say, nitpicking at this price definitely needs to be. And this brings me to the verdict. Whoop. And I can repeat my verdict from the title probably. This is beyond Harman. I think if you want to have something that like follows somewhat like Harman-ish tuning, which means like sub bass is boosted, then mid's relatively neutral, and good clarity in the upper mids to lower treble region, and then in scoop to prevent fatigue, and then again upper treble, I think the EJ07M does better than variations purely tuning wise. And I think also in good part of the technicalities, EJ07M beats variations. If, however, this is worth to you, the additional price is a different question. And there's a second if, because unlike variations, this has driver flex, and this can really kill the comfort for you. And yeah, like personally, I will probably replace variations with EJ07M, because like I also can't wear it as long due to the really long and thick nozzle here. I can wear this for definitively longer, even for this driver flex. But still, adding to this, again, the bad cable, which does not even have an interchangeable end. Like, interchangeable here was not well implemented, but at least it had one. Not even here. So I'm not sure if the additional like price plus that this charges over the variations is really worth it. And that's why even for I personally would tell you, like, if you want Harman-ish tuning, this is a very good way, maybe the best below 1000, I'm not entirely sure, get it. I still can't recommend it as general tuned IEM. I just can't. It just has too many flaws with the cable, with the driver flags, and then still a big scoop between like 5 and 9K. That is something that I personally don't mind, but I can totally see why some don't like it. And I can also see why this is in killer for some genres. If you really want to have all of the details and all of the nuances, this big scoop is just too much. And that's why I cannot recommend it in good conscience to you as like general all-rounder. But if you want Harman-ish target IEMs and you don't mind replacing the cable and you don't mind the driver flags, which again is a lot to say, I can see at least this being a good IEM. And I think that's it about my review today. Again, went pretty long, but I had to go all over it because it's a really good IEM, generally, just not as good as it could be. And yeah, with this, hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have criticisms, if you have like any other recommendations, please leave a comment. And with this, Don Spector.